So much to everyone for being here tonight. It's a pleasure to see all of you. And it's a great pleasure for me to moderate this debate between our candidates for Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. So I'd like to start first by welcoming our candidates to the stage. We're going to do this in alphabetical order by last name, starting with Republican Lauren Boebert and Democrat Adam Frisch. Now I'd like to bring in our panelists who will be asking questions of the candidates. Andrew Olson, Operations Superintendent for Chevron, Tamara Ward, a partner with Toloma Partners, and Nathan Steele, High Country Area Manager, Xcel Energy. So I'd like to thank the candidates for your willingness to participate in tonight's debate and also to serve our state in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, before we begin, I'd like to go over our ground rules. First, for the candidates. Candidates, please focus on ideas, not personalities. Be courteous. Do not make inflammatory statements. Disrespectful or attacking language or profane speech will not be tolerated, and I will cut you off. Please do not display props of any kind. You must strictly adhere to the time limits of each section of the debate, and I will cut you off if you don't. And I reserve the right to cut off a candidate who exceeds the time limit or to redirect a candidate if your remarks are not pertinent to the elected office. Do you both agree to these rules?
Yes, ma'am.
Before I agree to the rules, I do have one request for you. Edie, can you please disclose to the audience that you publicly supported my 2020 Democrat candidate, Diane Mitch Bush? And can you please disclose any other roles that you have had with Democrat candidates in the past?
I actually do not recall giving any money to Diane
Not
Mitch
money,
Bush.
just support.
Come again?
So I believe that this is relevant because when I received the invitation to the Club 20 debate, Club 20, CMU, and the Daily Sentinel said that they want to provide a nonpartisan forum tonight. Now, isn't it true that you tweeted during the 2020 election, Rep. Mitch Bush, I've always been a supporter of yours?
And the other part of that tweet said that I took issue with something she had said relative to her
but
position
you did support
on a bill.
her, correct?
You know what?
Always.
This debate is not
I
about
believe
me,
that it's relevant
Congresswoman
because I think that
Boebert.
it's fair to everyone here
We
to
are going
understand
to go
that
ahead.
Club 20 knowingly chose you to moderate this debate. I don't think it's fair to the audience or to you.
Congresswoman Boebert, this is not about me tonight. This is about you and your opponent. I am here to be the traffic cop while these panelists ask questions. And I respectfully ask that you agree to the terms of this debate. If you will not do so, then we can close things down right now.
Edie, I do agree to the rules of the debate, and I am glad that everyone is aware that Club 20 has not chosen a nonpartisan moderator. Thank you.
All right, members of the audience, now it's time for the ground rules for all of you. We ask that you exhibit professional decorum at all times during these debates. Limited applause is allowed, but unruly outbursts or disruptions will not be tolerated. I will penalize a candidate's time if their supporters are unable to maintain decorum. And audience members should also be aware that, as you can see, these debates are being filmed. They are being live streamed for public viewing. I want to make sure you're aware of that. So now with that, we're going to go on with our opening remarks. We conducted a coin toss backstage, and candidate Boebert has chosen to begin the opening remarks. Candidate Boebert, you have 3 minutes for that.
Nancy Pelosi is running a con game in Washington, D.C., and we are all paying the price for it. Nancy's con game works like this. She slaps a great name on a horrible bill, loads it up with thousands of pages of spending that we don't need and we can't afford. And then she forces a vote in the dead of night with no time for any of us to actually read the legislation. Millions become billions. Billions become trillions. We get an army of IRS agents, tax hikes, crime, open borders, inflation galore. That is liberal extremism. It's dangerous, and I am determined to help stop it. I didn't go to Washington, D.C. to join their clubs. I went there to stop socialism, stop liberal extremism, and help fire Nancy Pelosi. We were within 5 votes of firing her last time. This time, she's out of there. The American people know what's up. We used to trust our elected leaders on both sides of the aisle to stand up for and defend our God-given rights. I had never been in public office before. I'm like most Americans who just want the government off of our backs. But when liberal extremists tried stripping away my rights to defend myself, when they defunded the police and allowed riots to take place in our cities, when they mandated I shut down my small business while Walmart down the street was able to stay open, I had enough. Government's job is not to be our nannies or to choose winners and losers. The proper role of government is to keep you free and to secure your rights. Instead, it feels like the government is working against us. And I've got news for the Department of Justice. The parents who are showing up to school board meetings aren't terrorists. It's okay for moms and dads to be involved with school decisions. And I've got news for anyone else who will listen. Free speech is a God-given right. The government doesn't give us permission to use it. And big tech should not be in charge of suppressing it. And it's not something that you should be threatened by. I'm using my voice as your representative to put a stop to liberal extremism. I led the way on stopping illegal immigrants from receiving $450,000 checks. I led the way in getting the Disinformation Governance Board shut down and the Truth Czar to resign. I voted against bill after bill of Nancy Pelosi's con game. And I said, you know what? Girls should be in girls' bathrooms and playing in girls' sports. I'm proud that the Gazette calls me a champion of small business and the working class and the middle class. It's not in the press very often, but I'm proud of the work that I do, and I'm proud to serve as your representative.
Candidate Frisch, you now have 3 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you to Kristen and the entire Club 20 staff and membership. Club 20 is by far and away the bedrock of a strong and prosperous Western Slope. I also want to thank Representative Boebert for showing up tonight without the limitation of only being able to turn in pre-recorded answers per videotape as you demanded in 2020. I'm Adam Frisch. I'm not Nancy Pelosi. I'm Adam Frisch. I'm not Nancy Pelosi. I'm a CU graduate, a Western Slope resident of 20 years. I'm a conservative small business owner, a dad, and a concerned citizen who's sick and tired of the angertainment industry, which is being led by Representative Boebert and her mentor, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Until the end of December 21st, I was an unaffiliated voter for 36 years, and just like more than 43% of the voters in this district. I have said for decades, if there was a Get Stuff Done party, I'd be in that party. But that party's not doing very well right now, and our country's suffering for it. People are sick and tired of the circus. I'm here tonight because we need new representation who will focus on Colorado jobs, Colorado water, and Colorado energy. Not herself. Right now, rural Colorado's interests are getting steamrolled in Washington, D.C., and that is because of you, Congresswoman. You have failed us. You're not doing the work. You have consistently voted against the interests of our farmers and ranchers, our small business owners, our veterans, our teachers, and our healthcare workers. On July 1st, 2021, you voted against more than $4 billion for Colorado's highways, bridges, rails, and broadband, and $8 billion to improve the water storage across the entire western part of the United States. On March 3rd, you voted against the Honoring Our Pact Act, which expanded VA healthcare benefits for veterans exposed to burn pits. On April 15th of 2021, you and your mentor, Marjorie Taylor Greene, were the only two out of 435 members of the House to vote against funding for leukemia research. And even as you vote against these laws that help our district, you are 0 for 39 in getting your own bills out of committee, let alone any signed into laws. I'm curious, Congresswoman, are you failing because you don't care, because you can't do the job, or because you can't tell the difference between right or wrong? Is your argument for re-election that you will spend the next term the same as your first, thus batting 0 for 78 when it comes to passing laws? Or will you remain focused on your Twitter account and how many cable news interviews you can do from Florida or Texas? You're not showing up, you're shooting blanks when it comes to protecting the citizens and the communities of our district. At the end of the day, this race boils down to one thing: competency. Who do you want representing your family, your business, and your community in the halls of Congress? I'm Adam Frisch. I'm building a bipartisan, pragmatic, pro-normal party coalition. I'm here to ask for your vote in November because serious times demand serious leadership.
Thank you both for those opening comments. And so now we'll move into the Q&A portion of the debate. Each candidate will be asked to respond to 6 questions that have been submitted by Club 20 members and our partners. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question. The candidate who goes first on each question will also have an opportunity to offer a 60-second rebuttal to the other candidate's response. The candidate who went first in opening remarks will offer the first response to the first question. So that means that we will start with Congresswoman Boebert. And the first question will come from Andrew.
Water is our most precious natural resource. From sustaining life to providing the recreational opportunities many of us love, water is truly the lifeblood of the West. If elected to the U.S. House, what will you do to address the Colorado River crisis and ensure this resource is available for generations to come?
Thank you so much for that question. Often I'm asked what my top 3 issues are, and I say water, water, water. The West and Colorado have suffered from a historic 22-year drought. The system is strained, and federal officials have told basin states to conserve an additional 2 to 4 million acre-feet of water. I'm working to secure funds for more water storage and delivery projects like the Wolf Creek Reservoir in Rio Blanco. This is something that is very beneficial to our district. And I also led the charge to defeat RWR's proposal to steal 700 billion gallons of water from the San Luis Valley and send that to the Denver suburbs. I also recently secured important appropriations, a victory for a pilot program addressing phreatophytes. The Russian olives and the salt cedars are an invasive species that can guzzle up to 200 gallons of water per plant per day. In a legislative provision that was signed into law, I also secured $10 million to address the deferred maintenance backlog for increased water storage projects for the Southern Utes and their Pine River Indian irrigation project. This is something that I am proud to be working on. I have legislation to protect private property rights, and we need a strong voice when that compact comes up in a couple years.
Candidate Frisch, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. Step 1, prior appropriations needs to remain the bedrock of the Colorado State water law, and we make sure that we protect the water rights of everyone who's had them way before the law of 1922. That's the number one thing. I'm going to make the case, who do you want sitting in the halls of Congress protecting the water rights of the citizens and the businesses and the families of this district, to make sure that the water stays not just in Colorado, but in the western slope and southern Colorado. Denver's after our water, and so is California and Nevada. And again, I will ask you, who do you want sitting in those halls of Congress negotiating against what's probably going to be 52 members of the California delegation, with 7 or 8 people on the side for Colorado? We need to figure out how to do storage, Even if we were given all the water that was coming down from the mountains right now, we don't have enough storage. It's imperative for us to figure out where we can find storage on the western slope and in southern Colorado. There's a lot of natural basins out there from a geographical and topographical maps that we need to explore to make sure the water stays in this district across the entire thing. You talk about being supportive of water, but you yourself, you're one of 9 out of 435 members of the House, one of 9 who voted against H.R. 7283, the Stream Act, which helped prevent acid tailings from polluting our water. So it's not just the quantity of water, we also have to make sure we have strong water health.
Congresswoman Boebert, 60 seconds for rebuttal.
Yes, so this is part of the con game that I mentioned in my opening statements that Nancy Pelosi plays, and it seems that my opponent is all on board with Pelosi's con game. The legislation, the Stream Act that he mentioned, well, I thought he wanted to fight inflation. Instead, you just want to slap a good name on a bill and grab more money. Here's the deal. On this piece of legislation, on June 30th, the Energy Department said that they were going to spend $500 million of our tax dollars so they could establish clean energy hubs on abandoned mine lands. $500 million. A month later, Pelosi pushes the Stream Act to grab more money. This is why we need single subject legislation in Congress, but also I do want to point to our forests, which are very critical. 80% of the population's the state's population relies on Colorado's forest watersheds for municipal water supplies, and this is why we need to manage our forests so we have strong water resiliency.
Tamara? Tamara has the next question.
Grand Junction, Rifle, and Glenwood Springs are fortunate to be 2022 RAISE grant winners under the new Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which brings a significant investment in mobility hub infrastructure on the western slope. What will you do as a member of Congress to keep federal funding investments flowing for the benefit of our rural communities?
Candidate Frisch.
And I'm Adam Frisch, not Nancy Pelosi. I will actually not only vote for infrastructure bills, when the money shows up here, I'm not going to be passing around a flyer saying anything differently. The Congresswoman had a flyer that was sent out to a lot of people in this audience and across this region, touting about 9 specific aspects of what she brought home, and she voted against every single one of those 9 things that were in the bill. And it's important for us to realize it's not just what you put in a flyer, it's what you actually do in the halls of Congress in a bipartisan manner. And we, again, the Congresswoman voted against $5 billion infrastructure that was going to go for roads and bridges and tunnels as well as broadband. And if we want to have telemedicine health, and if we want to have more educational opportunities in our rural districts, it's imperative that we have broadband. There's all this conversation when I'm down in Denver about how great 5G is. Most of this district could use 1G. And it's really important to figure out how to bring home those dollars. So when one of my main reasons to go to DC is making sure that this district has the resources to come back to the families and the businesses and the communities to make sure it all doesn't end up in Denver and these other large metropolitan cities. Colorado and the Western Slope in Southern Colorado needs to have its fair share of funding to put it to work. And I'm certainly not going to lie to my constituents when I come home if I don't vote for something.
Congresswoman Boebert.
Please have the question repeated.
Grand Junction, Rifle, and Glenwood Springs are fortunate to be 2022 RAISE grant winners under the new Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which brings a significant investment in mobility hub infrastructure to the western slope. What will you do as a member of Congress to keep federal funding investments flowing for the benefit of our rural communities?
So let's break this down. In Washington, D.C., part of the con game that is played, and it doesn't matter if you're not Nancy Pelosi, because when you get there, if she's speaker, you work for her, especially the Democrat Party. They're pretty beholden to her. But she will put a 2,000-page bill on our desks at midnight and give us 22 hours to read the bill. not knowing what's in it, not giving us time to understand the legislation, and that's not what I'm playing. The infrastructure bill that was passed was one of these con games. It has a great title, but it was over $1 trillion, and only 9% of the legislation went to anything infrastructure related. I have a strategy. We actually bring things through committee, discuss them, debate them, add amendments, have markup, and then bring it to the House floor. If that doesn't work, well, I offer an alternative bill. I offered an alternative bill to our infrastructure package that we passed in Washington, D.C. $650 billion, 100% of it was actual infrastructure. No Democrats wanted to do that. They wanted to sign on to Nancy Pelosi's con game. And you better believe that when I'm fighting for appropriations requests in Washington, D.C., if they get passed into legislation, I am going to brag about that because I worked hard to make sure those arrived in our district for you. But I'm not playing Nancy's con game to do it.
Candidate Frisch, your rebuttal.
I'm going to be hired by the citizens of this district, and I will be fired by the citizens of this district. I'm not going to work or report to duty for anyone in Washington, D.C. And for the record, as I said as a citizen, and as I said in my primary part of my candidacy, I will not be supporting Nancy Pelosi for the Speaker of the House. So if you want to keep on talking about her, I welcome you to that. We need to figure out how to bring the infrastructure back to make sure that there's enough money at our table to feed the families and put food on the plate for all the families who are working really, really hard. Infrastructure and construction is a mainstay of where we are in our district, and it's really, really important that we go there in a bipartisan manner and work with as many people as possible to try to figure out how to bring our resources back.
Thank you both. Our third question comes from Nathan.
Colorado's home to 36% federal lands with approximately 24.5 million acres of forested landscape. Our forests provide wildlife habitat, recreational opportunities, and serve as the state's largest reservoir for water. But when our forests aren't managed properly, they become prey to invasive insects and catastrophic wildfire. If elected, what policies would you put in place to improve the health of our forests?
And Candidate Boebert gets the first response on this one.
Thank you so much. So one of the first pieces of legislation that I drafted and introduced was my forestry legislation, and it's the most comprehensive forestry bill we've seen in over a decade because this absolutely matters. We all want cleaner air. We want cleaner water. We want to be good stewards of our land, and that begins with managing our forests. Our forests are currently overgrown and poorly managed, making them susceptible to wildfire, disease, bark beetle attacks. Forests in Colorado and the West used to have 50 to 100 trees per acre, but now we see 500 to 1,000 trees per acre. There are also 6 billion standing dead trees in the western United States. It's a massive tinderbox waiting to ignite. 80% of the state's population relies on Colorado's forested watersheds for municipal water supplies. Healthy forests act as a natural water filter and storage system and are critical to maintaining healthy watersheds. In the United States, forests are a source of drinking water for over 180 million people. Representatives Diana DeGette and Joe Neguse want to turn another $400,000 of acres of Colorado's forests into designated wilderness. And this is something that I have led the charge on in stopping in this Congress, removing this legislation, these land grabs multiple times from being passed.
Candidate Frisch.
You talk about bringing legislation about the forest, but again, 0 for 39 and getting any of your legislation out of committee and out of the floor. So it's one thing to talk about something, it's another thing to get something done. And that's what I'm going to Congress to do for everyone. And I'll work in a bipartisan manner, not try to go to offend half the people that are sitting in members of Congress. There's no doubt the forests are also our lifeblood of our district economically and from a conservation standpoint. And we cannot have a great water supply system if we don't have healthy forests. We need to figure out how to get more people in there clearing out the deadwood that the representative spoken of. We agree on that. There should be able to be good paying jobs. We should try to figure out how to mill some of that deadwood off of our lands. Currently, I think only about 15 or 18% of the forest is technologically being able to be used with machines. We need to figure out how to invest in other technology to get into more of the forest to make sure we clear out that deadwood. It's absorbing the water that we need to run into our streams to keep everyone healthy.
Congresswoman Boebert, your rebuttal.
So I would encourage everybody to actually look at the work that I have done. There's been a lot that has been able to come out of my office, even in the minority. They're not reporting on them on CNN, but I've delivered on jobs, roads, healthcare, forests, waters, farmers, ranchers, veterans, guns, and our space program. In December, I even met with the Glenwood Springs Post-Independent, and they were saying, hey, what are you doing? And when I was able to lay this out and remind them of the press releases that I send to them on a regular basis, they ended up writing a story saying, quote, Boebert appears to be truly invested in connecting with her constituent, and how I'm working on forest management, and how, quote, it's both interesting and appreciated how Boebert described her view on working and talking with Colorado's Democrats. And then they went on to say that they often choose not to write about the things that I'm actually accomplishing. I was able to get 9 legislative victories, including work for our hospitals, our Indian tribes, our farmers, and our ranchers,
Time.
and water projects.
We'll go back to Andrew for our next question, and candidate Frisch will have the first response.
Some counties on the western slope are experiencing temperature increases at a higher rate than most of the rest of the country. The resulting aridification of our lands is impacting our ranchers, farmers, and our outdoor industries. How can we best manage the risks to our economy and to our health from a changing climate?
Candidate Frisch.
Thank you. There is no doubt that we are in the midst of a climate crisis. That's number one that needs to get on the table. And this goes back to those 2 other issues we were talking about. This is why it's so important to make sure we have healthy forests, and so important that we save every drop of water that comes down from the sky, that runs down through our rivers, and we have to figure out how to get as much of that water as possible into our ag community, into our ranching community, and making sure that our recreational opportunities remain fruitful for everybody. Conservation and the outdoors is the lifeblood of this district. Again, whether it's in ag, whether it's in farming, whether it's in recreation, we need to make the outdoor industry, which is booming here in Grand Junction, we need to make sure that we have a healthy climate, and we have to make sure that we have the policies in place that still allow us to do the energy production that we need in the United States, as well as the energy production we need in this district, but at the same time to make sure that we focused on those forests and that water, because those are going to remain the foundations of how we make sure that we stay healthy economically and as a community.
Congresswoman Boebert.
The United States leads the world in reducing greenhouse emissions because of our natural gas. We have some of the cleanest natural gas in the world, and we need to unleash the full power of the American roughneck right here. But so many forces from the left are making a really huge mistake. We all, as I said, want cleaner air. We want cleaner water. We want a healthy environment. We want healthy forests. We have to be good stewards of this land. And our energy production is part of that. We have the cleanest energy in the world. And the left wants to outsource our energy development to our adversaries. They would rather beg OPEC than rely on the American roughneck. They would rather beg Iran and Venezuela and Saudi Arabia for energy when we even have 42% cleaner natural gas than Russia. I supported an all-out ban on Russian energy. This is what we need to do. We need to be energy independent here, again, in America. If you're serious about greenhouse emissions, start with that. Start with managing our forests. One catastrophic fire produces more carbon emissions in a few short days than every vehicle in the state of Colorado running 24/7 for an entire year. If you're serious about carbon, then we need to start with our forests and being energy independent and being resilient with that energy right here in America.
Candidate Frisch, your rebuttal.
Congressman, you keep on talking about congressional legislative success. You're 0 for 39, so I'm not sure how you define success. I define success of actually proposing laws and legislation and having them passed by everyone in the House of Representatives. You talk about helping out water systems for the indigenous people down in the southern Ute, irrigation, but you voted against the package that included that. H.R. Bill 2471, it was one of the 9 aspects of bills that you took credit for that you voted against specifically. So I think we have to be very careful about how you define success. I think it's really important to make sure that we remain healthy in domestic energy production. We need to figure out a way that when a barrel of oil is produced in Colorado, we have to make sure that it comes from the United States and Colorado and not getting it from Iran or Venezuela or showing up in Saudi Arabia begging for more oil.
We'll go to Tamara for our next question, and Congresswoman Boebert will respond first.
How will you represent all the diverse communities in your large district, from oil and gas to those who rely on an outdoor recreation economy? Will you be responsive to those constituencies who may disagree with your philosophy?
So I think that I've done a pretty good job the past 2 years of being the representative in this district and actually being in the district. There's been less of a presence in the past with our representatives. I have traveled this district for more than 2 years, meeting with people, talking with them, hearing about their concerns, having roundtable discussions, and seeing good success from those. I went down to the San Luis Valley when they were struggling with getting their radar system connected to the National Weather Service system. They invested $1.8 million and were not able to get that connected and actually use that radar system. Immediately following that roundtable, I sent a letter and made sure that it got connected. And now they were able to use that radar that they put into effect. When I heard the RWR wanted to steal 700 billion gallons of water from the San Luis Valley, I led the charge at stopping that. There has been many meetings that we've had with stakeholders and elected officials to put Colorado's 3rd District first. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, I think that we can all agree that the Constitution is a good direction to go. It's not extreme to want a secure border, to want our water, to want healthy forests, to want to reduce inflation, to reduce crime, and for moms and dads to have a part in their children's education.
Candidate Frisch.
This Get Stuff Done party that I've been trying to start for the past 20 years remains relevant to this exact question. We have an incredibly diverse community and a very incredibly diverse district. And I'm proud to I put on about 8,000 or 9,000 miles during my primary conversations around this district. The last 6 days of my primary, my son Felix and I drove 1,900 miles in 6 days, and we went to 54 communities: Dove Creek, Nucla, Dinosaur, La Junta, La Jara, all over the entire district. We focused on making sure that we showed up at every school district we could. I'm very, very proud to have obtained my substitute teaching license when COVID started, and I spent a couple days a week working with pre-K4 and kindergartners to make sure that those kids got the education they deserve. Under all circumstances, kids need to be in a classroom at all costs, and that's really, really, really important. There's a ranking of a bipartisanship of members of the House. Out of the 435 members, our current Congresswoman is 433 out of 435. My goal is to make sure I'm in the top 10 of that list. And if you look at the top 10 or 15 of those are people that are not always on television or on Twitter, but they're getting legislation passed, and they're not going to be 0 for 39. And we need someone who's going to be at the top of this bipartisan list, because that is the type of the district that we live in.
Congresswoman Boebert, 60 seconds for rebuttal.
Yeah, so I have put my flagship office in Pueblo, Colorado, and have spent a lot of time there. Our district is absolutely diverse, and it's so incredible to actually get out and meet with the people and discuss them. And talking about where people rank in Washington, D.C., I think that's pretty interesting because it's usually the people who are doing the less that are the least that are patting themselves on the back and saying that they're doing something excellent. And like I said, I didn't go to Washington, D.C. to play Nancy Pelosi's con game. I am not going to sign on to a 2,000-page bill when I don't even have time to see what's in it. I don't care what kind of gem is stuck in the middle that says, oh, I can never vote against this. I will always stand up for what's right for you, and I'm not there to play that game. You can look at my voting record. I have a 100% conservative record when it comes to life, guns, the economy, immigration, and the border, and so much more.
Time. Thank you. And our final question comes from Nathan, and candidate Frisch will get the first response.
The President set a nationwide renewable energy goal to reach 100% clean electricity by 2035. Do you support this goal? Do you think this is an achievable goal? And how can our country achieve such a goal while maintaining electricity affordability and reliability?
I am pro-energy. Domestic energy needs to happen. Currently, we are producing, the United States is producing about 24% of its energy from renewable resources. In 2010, it was about 10%. So we're going in the right direction. I fully support it. We need an all-of-the-above process to try to figure out how we use natural gas and wind and coal as it becomes a little bit less important. But natural gas is going to be the bedrock for Colorado and the United States for a very, very long time. As I said before, if we're going to produce a barrel of oil or BTU of natural gas, we're much better doing it for the climate, for the workers, and for the environment if it comes out of the United States. And Colorado produces the cleanest oil, the cleanest natural gas and oil, and we can do a lot better job in making sure that we get out on wind and hydropower and solar as well. And it's imperative that we keep the jobs here and the energy production here as well. It's best for that climate. I'm not sure how the math works out to get 100% renewable in 2035. I would love for it to happen. I think it would be great. The holy grail is 100% renewable energy produced locally in your own zip code, but it's going to be a long, long, long time for that. And in the meantime, we need to make sure we stop disrespecting the men and the women who are putting food on their plate for themselves, as well as making sure that the rest of the country and our district has the energy that's needed to provide itself. Thank you.
Representative Boebert.
So, you know, it's interesting to hear someone from Aspen City Council talk about an all-of-the-above energy approach and really wanting it to be possible to be 100% renewable by 2035. Look at what's happening in California right now. They just banned gas cars a few years down the road, and then 1 week later, they said, hey, you cannot charge your electric vehicles because our grid cannot sustain it. In Colorado, the temperature reached 90 degrees in Pueblo, so 22,000 homes had their smart thermostats locked at 78 degrees. Now, that was supposed to be for an emergency only. 90-degree weather is not an emergency. We need to go beyond just being energy independent and having this talk of all of the above. We need to start exploring nuclear. I think it's very disingenuous when the Democrats talk about green policies when really they're sacrificing the American families at the altar of climate change, and they're just wanting to spend more money, print more money that we don't have, further inflation, further the energy crisis, and they won't even explore the option of nuclear, which is the cleanest. And in Aspen, the Aspen City Council resolved that they would strongly urge Congress to pass a carbon tax. That doesn't sound like someone who is pro-energy to me.
Thank you. 60 seconds for rebuttal.
When I talk about all of the above energy options, I include all of the above energy options. I have no problem of having nuclear power on that conversation. I think it was one of the detriments of Germany to shut down their things. At the same time, they were stuck relying almost 100% on Putin and his cronies to get their energy prices, and look what's happened. All of the above needs to be on the table, and it should. And again, for someone who spends so much time talking about being pro-energy, you voted against H.R. 7569 that was supporting our pipeline safety from cyber attacks. I'm not sure what other things or strings were attached to it, but I think it's important to make sure that we have a healthy pipeline flow for all of our gas options, all of our energy options, and cyber attacks is a growing threat, whether people believe it or not, and it's important to make sure that we pass legislation, again, not go 0 for 39, and making sure that Colorado energy remains part of a healthy economy for the entire country.
Thank you both for your responses to the panelists' questions. And now we will move into the cross-examination portion of the debate. Each candidate will be given 5 minutes to ask questions of their opponent directly on matters pertinent to the race or office. Now, please bear in mind that the questions should, in fact, be pertinent to the office you are running for and should not include any attacking speech or profane language. And I reserve the right to redirect a candidate if your remarks are not pertinent to the elected office. Candidate Frisch will begin the cross-examination.
Thank you. Congresswoman Boebert, we're sorry that that you missed one heck of a steak fry last night over in Loma. Christian, and to everyone else in the sponsors, thank you very much. What was more pressing than not being able to attend in your own constituencies to support Club 20 and show up for the dinner?
Yeah, so dinners aren't really my priority. Connecting with people and motivating them, that's what I'm getting done. You know, there's a lot of members in Congress who want to go to fancy receptions and swanky events, but that's not what I signed up for.
You're calling the Club 20 steak fry a fancy reception?
Excuse me?
Are you calling the Club 20 steak fry a fancy reception?
It could have been nice. I saw some folks that were dressed up pretty nice, but you know, in Washington, D.C., a lot of people go there for the steak dinners. I think the beef is better at home in Colorado,
Okay.
Cooked on my grill.
Can we go to the next question,
here's
if she's
the
getting
deal.
out there?
In Washington, D.C., the problem is there's not enough of me.
You
Last
can go to
Congress,
the
we
next
were
question.
5 short. We were 5
Congresswoman
short
Boebert,
from
do you
firing
promise
Nancy
to serve
Pelosi, and
your-
I'm going to make sure that that does not happen this time.
Do you promise to serve your full term, if reelected, even if your dream job of becoming a Fox News commentator comes up prior to the end of your second term?
I don't think that's my dream job. My dream job is actually just being a mom of 4 boys and raising my goats. That's my biggest dream. But it's an honor to serve the constituents of Colorado's 3rd District, and I look forward to doing it a second time.
And I'd like to remind the candidates not to ask personal questions.
Okay. Last month I asked for 5 total debates. I'm glad you accepted one. I offered to meet, including in Rifle, Colorado, to discuss even the Second Amendment and energy independence production. You said no. I've asked for conversations with our citizens, our voters, to have a town hall. Is there a reason why you've not had an in-person town hall even once in our district since you've served your term?
I have been all throughout our district. I've held many roundtables, and I've met with hundreds and thousands of constituents. We've had 133 hours of mobile office hours through my offices, and I've held multiple
Town halls have actually given a mic to the
multiple
citizens so they can address
teletown
you.
halls, and I send out e-newsletters on a weekly basis to make sure the people
Okay,
are
so you don't
up
go
to
to town
date
halls.
on what
If
we're
I could
doing.
go on to the next question, please.
Yes.
Remind our audience, you voted against H.R. 941. It was you and your mentor, Marjorie Taylor Greene, 2 people out of 435 about increasing cancer research. Assuming you're not pro-leukemia, what were you thinking about voting against H.R. 941?
Well, thank you for the very kind assumption. You know, it really makes me terribly sad when Nancy Pelosi uses the most vulnerable among us to force her agenda through Congress, but that's how she rolls. Congress established the bone marrow program in 1990, and it was not at risk of being defunded with this particular vote. But it did circumvent long-established particular pay-go rules, which is why we find ourselves $30 trillion in debt. Pelosi always pulls this crap with taxpayers, and if anything,
Okay,
I
enough about
think
Nancy
it meant
Pelosi, if
more
I could go
inflation,
on.
more borrowing from China, and Pelosi knows it. Lawmakers should have had the guts to
So is that the
cut
same reason why you were one of
$270
8 who
million
voted against protecting seniors from Emergency Scams Act and HR 446? Again, you were one of 8 out of
So there are already-
435 to
There
protect
are
seniors
already
from Emergency
protections
Scam
in
Act.
place for protecting our seniors from scams. Our law enforcement is already equipped to do this, and this was just another one of Pelosi's con games. This was a blank check, and
Okay, I'm Adam Frisch, I'm not Nancy Pelosi.
there was no
Do you think we should
there was
repeal
no
the 19th?
CBO score
Do
on
you
this.
think
We
we
don't
should
even know what it
repeal the
cost.
19th Amendment?
Excuse me?
Do you think we should repeal the 19th Amendment of the United
No.
States Constitution? Should there be an exception for rape, incest, or the life of a mother when it comes to women's health care? You
Is that
talk
in
about
relation to the
securing
19th
freedom.
Amendment, or we're just going on?
No, most people have a pretty quick answer if they want to repeal the 19th Amendment or not. If you want more time to think about it, I'd be happy for you to come back.
Well, no,
Should
I
there be an
answered your
exception?
question.
Do you support an exception for rape, incest, or the life of the mother when it comes to women's health care choice and the freedom that they need to make their decisions about their body?
I'm very proud of the Supreme Court's decision to send this back to the states to let the voters decide. That is how democracy works, and I think they got this absolutely right. I am pro-life. I have a 100% pro-life voting record, and I believe that full-term abortion is extreme, and so do 80% of the rest of
Time.
Americans.
So specific was
Time. The cross-examination, this portion of the cross-examination is complete. Now, Candidate Boebert, you have 5 minutes to ask questions of Candidate Frisch.
Adam, last month on the Craig Silverman Show, you said, quote, "I was unaffiliated my whole life until December 27th, 2021. I have proof that you were previously registered as a Democrat." Why did you say that you never registered as a Democrat until December 2021 when that's not the case?
because I've never registered as a Democrat until December 27th, 2021.
Well, I have voter registration that is signed by Adam B. Frisch under penalty of perjury, New York, March 10th, 1992. Check one box only to enroll in a party marked Democrat. Last registered to vote, Boulder, Colorado, name by which registered Adam B. Frisch, born October 1967, and the signatures match, sir.
That's my birth date. I do not remember registering as a Democrat or anything else besides unaffiliated.
It's funny how all of you tried doing the same thing. Diane Mitch Bush ran ads saying that she was independent, and now you're a lifelong unaffiliated voter, even though you registered as a New York Democrat. And I have a few more questions. When you were on Aspen City Council, did you urge Congress to pass a federal carbon tax on fossil fuels?
That was a while back. I'm not sure. I mean, you might have some facts about that.
Yes, I do. Just to let the audience know, introduced, read, and adopted by the Aspen City Council February 8th, 2016. Be it resolved that the Aspen City Council is strongly urging the U.S. Congress to pass legislation that levies an annual increased fee on carbon in fossil fuels, and that the U.S. Congress construct and implement this policy with the speed appropriate to the gravity and urgency of this situation. All in favor, motion carried. Adam Frisch, you voted for a carbon tax. When you remodeled your $9 million ski chalet, did you sign a deal with the city of Aspen to defer your affordable housing tax?
My house in Aspen?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that,
Well, the
how that
candidate
is.
has touted affordable housing, so I believe that this is pertinent, because if you were going to defend affordable housing, but then cut resources for affordable housing and work deals with the Aspen City government to delay your fees on a $9 million home remodel, I think that that is very much pertinent.
Oh, I'm happy to
You
answer
can
the
answer
question.
the question.
Yeah, of course. No. My wife and I paid off that affordable housing fee a couple months ago. I don't know the exact date, and proud to do so.
I just think it's interesting that the fee was requested to be delayed when you tout that you are for affordable housing. Zillow estimated the value of over $9 million May 2nd, 2018. And this agreement by and between Adam Frisch and the City of Aspen Housing Authority deferred that fee. But I do have more questions. On Aspen City Council, did you push for fewer cars, lots of renewables? I'm just curious, did you ever do anything to limit jet traffic in and out of Aspen?
The jet airport, you've been there many times to raise money. You should know, or probably do know, it's controlled by Pickens County. The City of Aspen has no jurisdiction
Well, you
over
urged
Pickens County
Congress
Airport.
to pass a carbon tax, so I didn't know if you urged Pickens County to limit their jet traffic. Adam Frisch,
I don't think
candidate
so.
interview, February 1st, 2019, quote, "It's great that there are even fewer cars on the road than there could be." Aspen Times, January 1st, 2019, Aspen spent close to $300,000 in 2017 planning to take 800 cars off the highway in Aspen each day. Frisch said he had supported the project as it was developing. Aspen City Council minutes of the regular meeting, September 26, 2011, Aspen City Ordinance 29 series of 2011, electric rate increase. Roll call vote, Frisch, yes. You are a Green New Deal extremist. These are extreme policies that are hurting Americans. Saying that you are all of the above, saying that you are moderate, that is another part of the con game that Americans are waking up to. You can't say one thing on the campaign trail and then do another. You also voted to raise electricity rates. You pushed some new sales taxes and said Aspen has a budget of, quote, $150 million for 7,000 residents. Now, just to put that in perspective, Pueblo has about $70 million.
Do you have a question for candidate Frisch here?
This is my time. I get to use it how I want. I'm talking. Thank you, ma'am. Did you ever push to decrease a sales tax or lower electricity rates?
You can have 10 seconds to respond to that question.
That was a 3.5-minute diatribe. Can you repeat the question? Any of them? And I'll be happy to answer them, Congresswoman.
Yeah, if I could repeat. You voted to raise electricity rates. You pushed some new sales taxes and said Aspen has a budget of, quote, $150 million for 7,000 residents. Did you ever push to decrease a sales tax or lower electricity rates?
We tried earlier, halfway through my term, to lower electricity rates, and I think we actually did at one point, and the same thing with sales tax. But we'll leave it at that.
Great. Thank you very much, both of you. We are now going to move to the closing remarks, and candidate Frisch, you will go first. You have 3 minutes to present your closing remarks.
Thank you all for being here. From what I can tell, my opponent is aiming for a second term of striking out again on legislation, benefits our district, and acting like bumper sticker slogans or policy proposals. We have real challenges here in CD3, whether it's water, jobs, energy production, healthcare, or wildfires. My opponent has consistently voted against common sense, bipartisan legislation to address these issues. Colorado's 3rd district deserves a representative who put hardworking families in our communities first, not herself. She has consistently embarrassed the people of CD3, including joining her mentor, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and disrespecting the servicemen and women during the President's State of the Union address last year. I'm not running to be a voice for any party or any Speaker of the House. I'm running to be a voice for the people of Western and Southern Colorado. I will work with anyone and any party from any state at any time to get things done for you. I'm a pro-Colorado energy, pro-Colorado jobs, and pro-Colorado water. From the early days of my primary, I made it very clear that my #1 goal is to join the Problem Solvers Caucus in the House of Representatives. 29 Democrats, 29 Republicans. To me, this is the path of being an effective representative for everyone in our district, not being ranked 433 out of 435 in effectiveness, or being 0 for 39 in passing legislation that I will bring forward. Going back, I spent my first 5 years on Fort Peck Indian Reservation in northeastern Montana. My father grew up in a mining town on the Iron Range of northern Minnesota, where my grandfather ran a humble grocery store serving the miners' families. My mom's grandfather immigrated here to open up a feed store and a grain elevator and a cattle operation so long ago that my cousin is now the fourth generation owner and operator of that. You can check your records, but I've spent a lot of time up there shoveling oats and corn and anything that comes out behind the herd of cattle. I have the personal background in the business and local government experience and success to be an effective representative for all of our district. On energy, I will do the work to make sure CD3 remains a global leader in energy production for all of the above that are mandatory for our nation's health. On the economy, I will actually do the work, focusing on policies to restart wage growth in our district. On water, I will actually do the work to protect our most precious resource that our families and businesses and communities rely on. On ag, I will actually do the work to make sure our families and ranchers have the tools and resources to flourish and allow the next generation to remain in this district. I will leave you all now with, as I started this journey, who do you want in that room in Congress, protecting your family, your business, and your community on water rights and business opportunities? I'm Adam Frisch. I ask for your vote this November. Thank you very much.
Candidate Boebert, you have 3 minutes for your closing remarks.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's an honor to serve, and it's an honor to represent. And I have proven that I have got the work done. I can get the work done. And I've secured over $340 million in appropriations for our districts, for our farmers and our ranchers. And Nancy Pelosi is running a con game. Under Pelosi, Democrats are told to campaign as moderates. Make no mistake, there are no moderates in Nancy Pelosi's party. If Democrats were moderate, they'd make the IRS more efficient. They would simplify the tax code, making it harder to cheat. Instead, Democrats are hiring 87,000 IRS agents to come after you. That's extreme, but Adam applauded DC Democrats for doing it. If Democrats were moderate, they'd tell universities with billion-dollar endowments to step up and do their part with college debts. If Democrats were moderate, they would stop the surge of rapes, drug smuggling, sex trafficking, and death. They would secure the southern border. Instead, Democrats have opened up the border. Our country leads the world in reducing carbon emissions because of our clean natural gas. If Democrats were moderate, they'd push for more natural gas. They'd lower the cost. They would help 20 million Americans who cannot currently afford their utility bills. They'd export more to our friends around the globe and create higher paying jobs right here, and instead they're shutting down Colorado and American energy. I'm on the budget committee, and Nancy Pelosi will not allow the Democrats to put forward a budget. Instead, they vote to spend trillions in the dead of night. That is extreme. Adam Frisch loves playing the Pelosi con game in Aspen. Adam says he's a champion of affordable housing because affordable housing sounds really good. But in the dead of night, Adam cast the deciding vote to strip millions of dollars from Aspen's affordable housing program. And just like Pelosi, Adam made sure he got perks. When Adam remodeled his $9 million ski chalet, Adam signed a deal with Aspen deferring his affordable housing fee for years. On Aspen City Council, Adam also got caught running a covert government operation. He shut down Aspen Development and killed blue-collar jobs. He worked in secret, spending 5 months circumventing Colorado's open meeting laws. 5 months in this covert government operation to kill blue-collar jobs, stripping even more money away from affordable housing. And today I'm launching AspenAdam.com to fact-check his campaign, because what Adam says when he campaigns and what he does are two very different things. And there's a reason why Adam didn't take first place or second place. No, he took third place in his last Aspen election. It's not time to help Nancy Pelosi. It is time to fire Nancy Pelosi. This election, say no to liberal extremists and their army of IRS agents. Vote for me, and I will keep fighting for you.
I'd like to thank both of our candidates for participating in tonight's debate.